Approved. And now we have public comment. We have three persons who have indicated they wish to address the board this evening. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The chair recognizes Michelle Rice to discuss collaborating with KCPS in your efforts to reduce out-of-school suspensions. Ms. Rice, welcome. Good evening.
Good evening, board. Can you hear me? Okay, my name is Michelle Rice, and I'm here on the behalf of Agape Learning Corporation. And we are a new corporation that is founded off of supporting children, families, and the community in out-of-school suspension. So the need and the target population, Agape Learning Corp, ALC, is an organization who will serve children with behavioral challenges and those who have received out-of-school suspensions. We shall serve as a liaison between child, school, family, community, and building relationships. Young minority blacks, learners who attend in Kansas City's the recent years were 5 times more likely to be suspended than their non-minority white classmates. Minority learners spend longer periods out of school suspension than their non-minority counterparts. Community partnerships in the plan. ALC is first seeking to collaborate with the Kansas City Public Schools as a consultant. And when I mean consultant, we are asking that you guys will be a referral system. So with us being a nonprofit organization, there will be no cost to you guys. ALC will begin restorative justice and trauma-assisted practices in the school with the highest out-of-school suspension rate, from elementary to high school. ALC shall be committed, trained, and will be utilized as professional development to the staff. ALC shall bridge the gap by committing ourselves to the work in reducing suspensions, and after receiving a yes from the Kansas City Public Schools in accepting this collaboration. We will work in partnership with KCPS as consultants in utilizing restorative justice practice and trauma-sensitive practices. So the other source is that we can come into the schools to assist by providing services. Also, we will be in a position where we'll be able to house out-of-school suspended students. So the outcome, ALC desires an outcome to reduce the suspension rate, beginning with students in pre-K through the secondary education. We want children to learn and grow in a school of their choice without bias of their past oversights. We want to support the families, educators, and administrators in the buildings, and community supporters of all learning needs, diverse backgrounds, economic status, gender, race, sexual orientation, and living conditions. We want children to know that they can be restored, that they can restore themselves, and know that they can be part of another's restoration. This notion can become reality when relationship building becomes part of the plan. We also want to see prison population decrease and observe the graduation rate. We want to see that increase. ALC wants to develop a community of productive citizens who can contribute to their own households and the economy.
Thank you. We now welcome Angeline Howe to discuss concerns regarding Lincoln Middle and Lincoln High. Welcome, Ms. Howe. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Dr. Bedell, President Robinson, and distinguished board members. I am Angeline Howe, parent and SAC member of Lincoln College Preparatory Academy. We, the SAC, are concerned that the LCPA's heritage, legacy, and integrity earned over the last 150 years is getting lost in the pursuit of creating global thinkers and monetary necessity. We are here to inform you, the board, of some observations we have witnessed during privileged meetings with Wellner Architectural Firm. The first being the lack of African American inclusion. Being that KCPS is 61% African American, there's no good reason why the board should not strive to be more inclusive. African American students are the majority, but the adult population and business representation are the majority. Too close, okay. Representation are the minority in all aspects of district business. Why is that? Second, there has been a shift in educational structure from IB to STEM with the reopening of the LCPA middle school. How do we have input when we are not invited to all the meetings? Inclusion is not selective. With adding STEM to the curriculum, the challenge of changing from standard school day to block classes, which, you're taking to my meeting. Excuse me.
Sorry.
That's okay. With adding STEM to the curriculum, the challenge of changing from a standard school day to block classes, which are every other day, simply is an additional layer LCPA is not ready for. Block classes at LCPA have been addressed over 2 years ago and was deemed unrealistic because of graduation criteria. The study was done at district level, so the evaluation's outcome should be somewhere here at the district. We also wanted to know if the district had a professional dress code for teachers and administrators. We are trying to develop professionals, and our students need to know and be able to mimic what a professional looks like when they represent themselves in future business environments. There seems to be no dress code with leggings, jeans, shirt dresses, and wrinkles, none of which are appropriate business casual, let alone professional business attire. Our third request are interviews for LCPA's middle school principal candidates. We have 4 recommendations based on knowledge, experience, and educational criteria. Those candidates are April Boyd Nora, Stacy Ragsdale Moore, Thaddeus Wilson, and Dr. Lewis Neal. And finally, LCPA's organization's alumni have a long history of working with the district to influence change not only at the building improvement level, but also working to affect hours that affect educational programming like STEM, extended day, block classes. We're suggesting that when you have an idea, ask somebody that's been around for a while, and they just might have the answers without you having to research those ideas. And we, the parents, alumni, and community, are here to help, not hinder you. So thank you for your time and consideration to these requests. Whew, man.
Thank you. Tom Love to talk about not blaming parents for everything. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here, and I'm sure you all have heard that when you mention to someone that you're a school board member, the first thing out of your mouth or someone's mouth is they start telling you about the parents. At least that's what happens to me. I don't know. But I'm really thankful tonight. I just heard that we're going to have K through 2nd grade literacy labs. Isn't that cool? The scores are going to skyrocket. The dyslexia law that's passed in Missouri, I mean, we're going to be screening all the children. That's 1 out of 6 children. The inmates in prison, the population's going to drop. 2/3 of the inmates are functionally illiterate in prison across the country. It used to be 75% when back in like 91 or something, I was a state rep and found that out. Oh my gosh. That's not going to happen here. I'm excited. I would really like to make another recommendation. I've mentioned it before, but it's really important. There's a big difference between the oldest girl in the classroom in kindergarten or 1st grade and the youngest boy. It's a year difference in time, but developmentally, it's at least a year and a half for the boys. The boys are 6 months developmentally younger than girls. If we target those children that are not developmentally ready, and then we let them take a 2nd year of kindergarten to be incredibly successful, it's going to change their lives. They're going to be, when they hit 3rd grade, they're not only going to be reading on grade level, they're going to be able to do the multiplication and the division and things like that. That's difficult. And they can graduate when they're 18 if they're summer birthday children. What's wrong with that? I mean, we were trying to graduate 39% of the students at 17 years old, and everybody goes. I mean, there were like 12 children, literally 12 children 6 years ago that were retained out of nearly 500 that were at kindergarten level when they were put into 2nd grade. That's like sink or swim. No help. So if we identify these children, there's actually a 2-year span in kindergarten because you can be born premature. And in different populations, the rate of premature birth goes up. So in the black population, and I don't want to say black, I actually want to say dark brown, because scientifically, everybody in the world is different shades of brown. We all have different levels of melanocyte cells. That's the only difference in our skin. But these children don't maybe not get the same health care, and there's about 15% premature births. In the Hispanic population, it's about 12%. And in the white population, it's 10%. Well, there's no reason that the kindergarten teacher, if they're put in charge, wouldn't say, hey, this child's not ready to swim yet. He's not ready to go into first grade. And that's going to be about 15% of the students.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Love. For the presentation of this evening's revenue and expenditure report, the chair recognizes Board Treasurer Matthew Oates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is our expenditure report as of the end of December 31st, 2017. Oh, am I in the way? Okay. So if we go on our first page again, our revenues up top, our expenditures are on the bottom. So first line item we look at here is our year-to-date for our local revenue. That's at 73 million compared to this time last year, which was about $70.4 million. And so two things to look at there. Number one, we are now about $3 million ahead in local tax revenue at this point last year than we're, at this point this year compared to last year, which is important. But when you take into account that last year also included $2 million from the Westport sale, we're actually $5 million ahead, and as far as tax revenue collections for this year. County, we haven't collected anything from the county yet, but that's as compared to $114,000 last year. Our state funding is at $7.4 million this year. That's compared to $6.4 million last year. And so that $1 million of additional revenue is due to that new allowance that the state has for ADA from pre-K. So now that we've closed those numbers, we start to recoup that funding. And then our federal funds this year are at $9.9 million compared to $15.6 last year. And that's largely due to our Title I and Special IDEA grants. These grants are funded as we spend them and we draw down funds. So we have the same funds revenues as last year. We're just picking up the pace on getting our request in with the federal government. So that gives us a total revenue of $90.5 million this year compared to $92.6 last year. Administration is at $2 million this year compared to $2.8 last year. Our instructional spending, so we're at $51 million this year compared to $51.8 last year, and that $800,000 gap is due to our reduction in staffing from last year. That was part of our school year 2018 budgeting process. Our support services, we're at $21.3 million this year versus $19.6 million last year, and that's up over as we've done our revamps to our curriculum, professional development, and services early in the school year, that we can have a earlier impact on our classroom instruction as well as our marketing of our schools. Pupil transportation's holding steady at $4.3 million for both years. Community adult services, $2.1 this year versus $1.4 million last year. And then our debt services, we're at $2.6 million this year compared to $1.8 million last year. And that is I should go back up real quick to our plant services. So the $13 million this year versus the $12.8 from last year is due to our one-time increase of purchases for new custodial equipment as we brought that whole apparatus in-house as of December 1st of last year. So that gives us total expenditures of $96.7 million this year versus $94.8 million last year. So now if you look at the bottom, That gives us a total revenue over expenditures of $6.1 million this year. So if we look at our graph, our familiar graph here, as you see, our majority of our funds come from our local sources, so local and county. On the next slide, where the money goes, as you see, most of our funding goes into direct classroom and other instructional support. And then our final graph is our line graph. So as we talked about in our last meeting, our blue lines are revenue and our red lines are expenditures. And so as you see historically, through December, we find ourselves chasing our expenditures, and I would assume starting next month as more tax revenue comes in, you will finally see that blue line cross the red line, and we'll stay over that for the rest of our fiscal year. At this point, do we have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Oates. John Fierro with our Governmental Relations Committee, you have a report?
Yes, Madam Chair, just wanted to update the board and the community. For those of you that recall, last year, among the many initiatives presented to the voters was a 1/8 cent sales tax that would generate annually about $10 million to support economic development in the East Side. Excuse me, and part of the organizational structure of that fund was the creation of a 5-member board. One of the members would be a representative of the Kansas City Public Schools, and the individual that this board selected was former Councilman Ron Finley, who's a private attorney and has spent many years involved with the civic community, neighborhood level, and more than qualified to represent the needs of the community. We had an opportunity with the Government Relations Committee to meet with Mr. Finley in early January this month, and he provided us an update that a few public hearings have already started engaging the community as to what the needs are. They are hard at work, this 5-member committee, in developing an application process, objectives, and will probably begin to entertain requests here in probably the next couple of months. And so just wanted to share that as an update, that the final part is that there is a public hearing scheduled for next Monday at 6:30 p.m. at the Samuel Rogers Health Center. And I would encourage those of you that are interested in learning more about the benefits of this 1/8 cent sales tax that you participate in the meeting.
Any other committee reports? All right, thank you so much, Mr. Fierro. The next item of business is the report of the superintendent. The chair recognizes Dr. Bedell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, we will have our video highlight, and as many of you may be aware or may not be aware, this is National Mentoring Month. And so at this time, we will highlight what's happening here in KCPS as it pertains to mentoring. All right, so while they are working out the technological issues, let me move with the second part of the superintendent's remarks. As many of you are aware, This is School Board Recognition Week. And at this time, we are going to take a few minutes to honor the 9 remarkable individuals who serve as our elected Board of Directors. To function as intended, a school system has to be organized to identify the right destination for its public. That is the job of the school board, to help establish the ideal destination for children to arrive at the end of their public education. That is as true in KCPS as it is in any other school system. Everything that happens in KCPS should be a function of that grassroots input that travels from the public to the public's representatives and on to my office as superintendent. It follows that KCPS can only succeed if it is governed well. I can report to you all tonight that we are governed very well. We are unified, transparent, trusting, and collaborative. Every one of these public servants has the best interests of students in their hearts and minds at all times. It is important that we never forget that these are unpaid and very demanding positions. These 9 individuals give hundreds of hours of their time every year for meetings, events, tours, and other KCPS obligations. They work incredibly hard to forge innovative, effective, and efficient policies that will overcome steep, entrenched obstacles and help our students make the gains needed so they can achieve their college and career goals. It is easy to criticize school board members, and it is our constitutional right to question and engage with our government, but always keep in mind that they have stepped up to help lead our community to a better place. This is a good time to paraphrase a quote from President Theodore Roosevelt. Credit belongs to the person who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself or herself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he or she fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his or her place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. On behalf of every member of Team KCPS, I want to thank all of you for stepping into the arena and daring greatly as we fight for the future of our children, families, and community. Please accept what you will have in front of you, certificates and framed photos as a symbol of our gratitude and esteem. And I also know that we would like to gather all of you up in the front and take a picture.
Can you grab your photos too and come around the front? So. Yeah, that'd be great. It's up to you, sir. I can have you all kind of, I think actually you got the one, so I think we should be balanced. Yeah. There we go.
Would that be on
Excellent.
Facebook?
Okay.
Would that be on Facebook so I can share it?
Hang on. It's time for my. Dr. B? Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell. Those are very nice, unexpected, and beautiful remarks. We really appreciate serving with you.
Thank you. I wanted to read our remarks first before we read MSBA's, but they did send something, and I do want to read this paragraph. School board service is often a thankless task, yet board members give countless of hours to making critical decisions that benefit the public school students in our communities throughout the state. To honor board members, MSBA has designated the week of January 21st through the 27th as 2018 as School Board Recognition Week. The goal of this week is to build awareness and understanding of the important function an elected Board of Education plays in providing leadership for our public schools. MSBA has also provided you all, I don't know if they're here today, but if not, they're mailing you some certificates recognizing you. Okay, so it's here. So thank you. So once again, thank all of you for your service. And I think our team is ready now. Are we ready to go with the video highlight?
We are KCPS.
I want to thank my mentor
for helping me out with my schoolwork, asking me how my day's been.
Getting me ready for life after high school, going on to college.
For her being here for me, for her taking time out of her day to come see me.
I want to thank her for giving me a gift on Christmas when I didn't even give her a gift.
Giving me an opportunity to help others and to help me at most.
He gave me a book that's from my favorite writer, James Patterson.
I have to thank my mentor about always being there and telling me to stay focused in basketball and sports, stay away from all the bad things like don't go into the wrong crowd.
We talk about like what I need help with and if any problems I have.
I want to thank my mentor for just being there for me, asking me questions, like asking what do I need.
He helps me do what I do, and he tells me not to stop. He tells me to keep on going.
Coming and playing basketball for me, helping me succeed my goals.
Without him, I'd probably be still with low attendance and bad grades.
I really have to thank my mentor for, helping me understand the importance of getting here to school, of trying to pick a career for my future, and set goals for myself.
Help me with my attendance, help me with my homework, and plus my other activities.
I thank my mentor for being there for me, somebody who's there for me when I need to talk about something.
I thank my mentor for helping me and giving me a lot of opportunities, for giving me a lot of great advice, for just being someone that I can count on and to trust.
For being there and just being a friend.
I've never had a mentor before, and it's kind of cool to have a mentor.
He's just a really good person.
That's really what I have to thank my mentor for. He's just helping me understand the importance of doing better.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes the superintendent's report and recognitions.
Thank you. And I do want to take an opportunity to encourage our community to publicize the opportunities to mentor children in KCPS. You may go to our website and sign up to be a mentor. So thank you for sharing the impact of the wonderful program. Now we will do our regular business items. 3.01, the board principles for education collaboration. The chair recognizes Board Member Wolfsey to present this proposal.
Thank you, Board Chair Robinson. Make sure everybody can hear me, right? Okay. I'm excited to be able to share with you, the public, today the work the board's been undertaking regarding our set of principles that we've put together for education collaboration. So what I'd like to do first is walk you through the kind of a landscape to give you some background of what public education is like within the Kansas City Public Schools boundaries. And this is my first time using this, so just bear with me. All right, looks like I'm off and running. So this slide's pretty self-explanatory, but I will walk you through it. We have in our boundaries about 26,500 students. That's between our schools and the charter schools. We have 22 charter operators within our boundaries, plus ourselves. That makes a total of about 23, if you would, districts. And we call them options because they may not necessarily actually be physically schools, but we have 45 elementary options, 23 middle school options within the boundaries, as well as 15 high school options. And just to give you a comparison to look at, we've put up here Springfield Public Schools, very close in size as far as students go to Kansas City, but it really begs the difference if you look at how many physical schools. They have 37 elementary schools, 11 middle schools, and 5 high schools. This basically starts to get at a point that we'll make a little bit further, that there's a lot of inefficiency that's starting to, when you're actually doing more schools but about the same amount of students, you're getting less of your optimum size for running of a school and the programs within them. So this one, I'm actually going to start with the chart first. And the chart, I want you to understand, this is total population in the 2000-2010 census tract data. But what it represents is orange represents population loss. Blue represents population gain. And what it's showing is essentially over that period of time, population was moving out of the kind of where we reside in the Kansas City Public School boundaries. Over on the left, we'll just kind of walk through those facts, but what we know is that since 2000, we have actually seen the district school-wide or school-age population decline overall by 29%. The reason why we say since 2000, so in 1999, there was legislation passed that allowed for the forming of charter schools, and in the school year 2000 was the first year that established schools came online. What's interesting to note is that prior to that date, we had virtually no loss in school-age population in our boundaries during the 10 years prior. And it is interesting to note that while we're having a decline in school-aged population, it's the rate of that decline that it is 3 times more than that overall population loss that you see over on the right-hand diagram. And specifically, African Americans under the age of 18 declined at an even faster rate, almost 42%. Since 2000. And just to give you, that's not all attributed to, loss of students. This is also a decline. There had been, since 2007, overall decline in birth rates, 20%. Okay. So, as you might, suspect, this does begin to present some system-wide challenges for public education in this environment. One of the things we see is high mobility across the system. And when I talk about the system, I mean charters and KCPS together. And for those of you that may not know what mobility means in the education landscape, it is any time a student either leaves a school or comes into a school. And keep me honest, is our overall rate right now at about 40% for mobility across the district?
40 to 41.
Okay. And what's interesting also to note is that it can be as high as, we have some schools that at this time in a school year might have 60+% students already that have gone in and out of that school. It this environment lends itself, we have a lack of a cohesive system. And some of the points I'd like to make here is that we have I'm going to go bottom up, but lack of a viable K through 12 feeder system. And what that is essentially is what many of us grew up with, which was that I went here for elementary, I went here for middle school, and I went here for high school, where your cohort is matriculating through that system, and you know what that is. We also have, there's no coordination on where schools are physically located. And I'm going to flip forward real quick. Whoops. See, this is the part that I was worried about using this fancy clicker here. The reason why that's important to understand is you could see in this diagram that on the left are Kansas City Public Schools and on the right are where charter schools are currently located. What happens when there's no coordinated oversight of where schools should open is you end up with school deserts in certain locations. In this particular case, you can see that on the east side of Highway 71, that there are many neighborhoods that don't have schools, charter schools located in that area. And it also tends to make it where you have a lot of overlap and inefficiency where they are doubling up. So in that, like if you look at this, that would be the southwest cluster, where you can see the charter concentration there. A lot of overlap and inefficiency. Makes it hard to plan. Okay. The middle bullet there, lack of assessment of impacts of school closures. Essentially, there's really no analysis going on when a school opens right now. There's no analysis going on as to the impact that opening of that school will have on the surrounding schools that it's going in near. And that is an issue. We see as a challenge a lot of families opting out of the KCPS charter system for surrounding districts. Kind of back to the slide I showed you before on the population. Essentially what we don't know for sure, but we can see that there's population moving out into those areas. And a lot of times what we're hearing is that it is they do want to know that feeder system is actually important and easy to navigate and very stable. And in the life of a parent, because I'm one, as much stability as you can get in your life with your children is a good thing. They also are able to have stronger offerings. So that's the full complement of academics. And what I mean by that is at the high school level, algebra to calculus, biology to physics, full arts and music offerings, athletics, and extracurriculars. This is what families are opting out into when they choose to move out. Introducing the presence of this saturation of schools leads to also the introduction of operating redundancy and fiscal inefficiency in the overall system. This shows up a lot of times in the areas of class size management, transportation, and food service. And over time, unfortunately, this results in a need to consolidate or eliminate programs and close buildings to essentially manage cost in the system. I want to make sure I'm looking at my two helpers. Okay, cover that one. We went through that. So we do have lots of choice, but we have what's now a lack of robust programs. What we've noticed is that we have a situation where we don't have students matriculating all the way through 12th grade in our system. You can see that basically 42% of the school year 14 ninth graders did not matriculate all the way to 12th grade overall. And you can see the breakout by KCPS versus charter. You know, this plethora of choice it has its downsizes as well, which are that these smaller school sizes, and just doing a nice comparison of high school, it kind of goes back to that lack of robust offerings. It really limits what we can do in these small schools. And that's just a nice graphic about what the average building size, when you're looking at an average building size at high school where you only have 238 students, it is very difficult to do all those complements of academics, art, music, athletics, and extracurricular. So I want to, hopefully this gave you a bit of a backdrop as to the current environment in which we're operating. Tonight is about, about summer of 2017, Dr. Bedell approached the Board of Education. As you might expect, there are a lot of people that approach KCPS about potentials in partnership. And he approached the board wanting to know, he'd like to speak to some of those folks. But what was interesting is the definition of partnership at that point in time had about 9 different definitions. And we realized very quickly that we had some work to do on the board side, getting a shared understanding of what that partnership meant and what were our core values around that, so that he could then use that information to have those discussions. So, go to this one. What we did was, in order to undertake this work, one of the first things we did was begin to do a little bit of reading and research. The first presentation there is the one that I just referred to. It's actually a little bit broader than I pulled out the slides I thought might be most applicable to tonight. But then we also used 3 other pieces to help round out our research. The public accountability for charter schools, standards and policy recommendations for effective oversight. That's from the Annenberg Institute for School Reform. The National Association of Charter School Authorizers has a piece on the road to better accessibility, autonomy, and accountability, and then exploring the consequences of charter school expansion in U.S. cities, which is from Bruce Baker. He's a professor of school finance. So the board worked over the last few months to reach consensus as to our core values, those things that we believe strongly. And what that has now come to be is in the form of board principles for education collaboration, which I would like to read to you now. And everybody following along, that's this one sheeter, and I will put it up on the board, but it's kind of small type, so that's why I want to make sure you had the sheet. Okay. The Board of Kansas City Public Schools believes the school district should play a defining role in building a more coordinated and organized public education system that meets the needs of all students. Toward that end, the Kansas City Public Schools Board supports culturally responsive, equitable, and financially sustainable partnership opportunities that seek to achieve the mission and vision of the KCPS system. This may include collaboration or coordination between KCPS and community groups or school operators. Currently, the Kansas City public education system has become increasingly fragmented, posing challenges for families to understand and navigate. To date, there are 23 public school systems within the KCPS geographic area, operating under different governance rules and educational models. This landscape does not provide families a clear path through the K-12 system. Enrollment and population data show that many families have continued to leave the KCPS area for surrounding school districts, even as the number of school options has grown. Towards defining an organized and equitable education system, the KCPS School Board has identified a set of principles. Oops, I know I need to move on. Thanks. Set of principles that describe our core values and priorities for collaboration and provide a framework for building access, opportunity, and accountability into public education in Kansas City. Adopted by the KCPS Board of Directors, these principles will help guide the district's discussions with potential partners. The proposal, these are the guiding principles. The proposal shall enhance education equity and opportunity for students within KCPS boundaries. The proposal shall contribute to a more coordinated system that provides for the educational needs of all children within KCPS boundaries. Moreover, the proposal shall not compromise financial sustainability of the overall system, nor contribute to inefficiency or redundancy. The proposal shall address an unmet need and contribute to academic performance of the overall system. The proposing entity shall commit to working with KCPS collaboratively as an educational thought partner. The proposing entity shall demonstrate educational expertise and operational capacity to manage a high-performing program. The proposal shall ensure a process for data sharing and academic and financial accountability that aligns with the Missouri accountability standards for school districts. The proposing entity shall commit to build a program that values and promotes inclusion to ensure diversity among students and staff. The proposal shall ensure effective student, family, educator, and community involvement in the development and operation of the school. Thanks. I'm not at questions yet, so if you go back. At this point, I would like to turn this over to Dr. Bedell to explain how the administration will utilize these board principles when evaluating proposals for education collaboration with KCPS. Dr. Bedell?
Thank you, Ms. Wolfsey. With tonight's action and the work that the board has been doing on this issue for the last 6 months, the board has provided my team with clear guidance on their core values and priorities for collaboration opportunities. Now it's the administration's role to implement the board's principles and provide clear guidance to groups interested in partnering with us. What to expect as far as process and decision-making criteria also is included. So my team has outlined a process and the steps that we will take to explore and evaluate potential collaboration opportunities. This includes, first, conduct exploratory discussions with my team to better understand a group's collaboration ideas. Second, submittal of a letter of interest to the district. We have developed letter of interest criteria so that interested groups know what they need to include in their LOIs. Third, administration's review evaluation of the LOI to determine if it effectively addresses the board principles for education collaboration. And I do want our community to be very aware that this includes various levels of potential coordination and partnerships. Some of it is just simple as sharing practices such as professional development or sharing contractual services where we may partner on transportation or we may utilize cafeteria and food services to be more efficient. And then there's a third component to it. And that third component is school model collaboration if we deem that this is something that's a value add. But I also want the community to understand that this is a framework that we will operate within so that we can make sure that we maintain a very objective approach to how we interact and interface with anyone interested in wanting to partner with the school district. But we also are aware that at the end of the day, an entity can make a decision to move on and do what they want to do, as we have seen in this city. So it is not KCPS's position to tell people whether or not they can open up a charter or not open up a charter. What we're simply saying is that it's our job, I think, as the largest entity right now, to figure out how we can have a much more coordinated system that benefit children. At that fourth stage, if we determine that a partnership could meet the board principles, benefit KCPS and the greater public education system as a whole, we will begin working with that group, school operator, on defining and developing the partnership. The last component is approval of collaboration by the board, in particular as it pertains to shared facilities, sponsorships, chartering, or serving as an LEA. As outlined in the board principles, the school districts will play a defining role in building a more coordinated and organized public education system that meets the needs of all students. The board's action tonight that they will take in our administration process to implement the board's policy guidance are critical steps in building a more coordinated, organized, and quality public education system for students. One thing I want to remind this community and I've said this from day one, is that our job is to remain committed to serving the children that we currently have. And any other student that may want to enter this school system, it is our responsibility to do right by the children that we have in this school system right now. And we truly believe as an administration and as a board that if we do the right things by serving the kids that we currently serve and putting all those efforts into that, then everything works itself out. There will be opportunity for increased enrollment. And we believe that as a school district, we stabilized this decline in enrollment. We were projected to have nearly 300 less children than what we have right now. In fact, at enrollment count day, we started this school year with 45 more students than we started with last year. So what I'm sharing with you all is that confidence is changing and the narrative is changing, but at the end of the day, we also know that as a school system, we share a lot of kids with many different entities, and that's just not charter schools, that's also parochial schools, and that's also 13 other public school systems where kids may jump from boundary to boundary. And so we just simply believe that it's important that we take the lead in trying to make sure that we do have a more coordinated system. And here's what I've shared with our board and my team. Whatever that agreement is, KCPS is not sitting here saying that we have to have 70% benefit, 30% for that partner. We believe that it needs to be 50-50, but at the very bottom of that, 100% benefit for children. And that's the position that we're taking in anything that we do moving forward. So, Ms. Wolfsey, I will bring it back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Vidal. I hope now everyone has a greater appreciation for our landscape in Kansas City, its current challenges and unsustainable trajectory at this point. More importantly, how the board's guiding principles and the administration's process and tools will provide the necessary framework for KCPS to serve as that leader in developing a more coordinated KCPS charter public education system, better equipped to serve all the students within its boundaries. As a publicly elected school board and stewards of public education, it's our duty and responsibility to serve the current KCPS students and families and to ensure that all students have an equitable opportunity to receive a well-rounded, quality public education. It's our hope that KCPS can serve as an example of how to collaboratively address the challenges in public education in the current environment. I am extremely thankful to my board colleagues for trusting me to lead this effort. With them, I'm very proud of the work we have finally completed, and I am thrilled to be sharing it with the public tonight. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, we will have an opportunity to ask questions, which I assume that will be very short, seeing that we've spent a lot of time with this. And then we will entertain a motion. Are there any questions regarding clarification of the presentation that was presented by our colleague? Seeing that there are none, it now be in order to accept and receive a motion on this proposal.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the position statement as defined by the KCPS Board of Directors that sets out the guiding principles for education collaboration. Just a reminder that position statement is we, the Kansas City Public Schools Board of Directors, support the KCPS administration's exploration and use partnership and collaboration as defined by our guiding principles to strengthen KCPS's ability to fulfill its mission and vision of creating an educational system equipped to serve the needs of all children within the KCPS geographic boundaries.
Second.
It is moved and second to approve the position statement on the board principles for education collaboration. Is there any debate on the motion or discussion?
Can a comment be
Yes,
part of the, okay.
Yes.
I just want to, I think it's appropriate that tonight this is being brought forward during the board member recognition week or month. I think Dr. Bedell talked about this board working together and being unified. Now I want to commend my colleague, Jennifer Wolfsey. She has led us through a very open, transparent, and inclusive process. And this is, I want the general public to know, this is not something that we just came up with over a 1 week period. we've been at this probably for about 3 months or so. And in addition, she has then followed the direction of the board to go out and meet with key stakeholder groups, many of them here, to seek further input. So I just want to again commend my colleague, those members of the board, that this was indeed an open, transparent, and inclusive process. And I look forward to working with those new partners that come before us.
Board Member Oates.
Yeah, just to echo first Mr. Fierro's comments, I do want to commend Ms. Wolfsey, Ms. Manser, I know Ms. Lewis, Mr. Fierro, and others who've all put in some great effort to this whole project. There's been a lot of homework we've done. I've read a lot of studies around good system governance, whether that's district, charter, the whole gambit. So it's been a very educational process for myself. I personally feel this is very important, just in the way that I end up arriving to the school board. So when I think about my path here, I started out on Friends of Hell Cook, which was a movement to reopen a school. And through that, I found myself participating in the district's master planning process. So in about 2014. And so it was there that I kind of learned about the impacts of like system efficiency and how that can have a direct impact on what districts are able to deliver. It sounds pretty, I guess, intuitive now when I say it to myself, but at that moment it was a big, aha moment. All schools, the first lesson you learn is that every school, no matter if there's one kid in there or if there's 1,000 kids in there, has a fixed cost. You have to staff it, you have to heat it, light it, cool it, cut the grass, and that's just a fixed cost. And so when you can create density at school buildings, where you can create efficient use of operations, that's more money that you're putting into the classroom, and that has a greater impact on our students. So once I got to the school board, and getting to participate and get to interact with people from all different, spectrums. You meet a lot of people in the community, different not-for-profit groups, other charter school board members, charter school authorizers, the philanthropic community, civic government, all that. The one thing that you learn is that everybody wants what's best for kids. I think that's something important that we all need to be sure that we always keep in mind. But on top of that, what I learned just in my time on the school board is our specific responsibility as KCPS. We are solely responsible for the financial situation of this district. So every kid, whether it's the kids we have here, the kids who exist but don't participate in the district, and then those kids in the future. And so it's very important to me. I think that, if we're honest about the past of this district, we've seen what can happen when there is not good governance, especially around that financial piece. And I think these last few years can show what happens when there is. I guess the last thing that I'll say that really hammered this home for me was last year when the National Society of Black Engineers held their national conference in Kansas City. And I sat in the opening session, and the executive director was laying out his national vision to graduate 10,000 Black engineers by 2025. That's a really lofty goal, especially given today's current numbers nationally. But what he cited in that as one of the biggest barriers was pipeline, that K through 12 pipeline. And he was saying that a lot of inner city schools, those students, as Ms. Wolfsey alluded to, don't have access to the full complement of math and science that you need just to enter the university. So that's, biology through physics, algebra through calculus. And so for me personally, as someone who's very, I want the best outcomes for our students. This is a very important step, I think, towards being able to use our operations and everything to be a lot more efficient for our students. So I look forward to what this guiding partnership principles can do.
Board Member Manser.
I really appreciate us coming to this. discussion again on this week of school board recognition, because it really, as Mr. Fierro said, it really brings to a head for me how much I enjoy working with and debating and dialogue and discourse among these colleagues. We really did undertake quite a bit of study and conversation that led us to this. It allowed us to surface our own questions and concerns and biases and perspectives. And I feel that we have really strived to come to a place where we can create a fair, equitable process that can be consistent and that the community can hopefully understand and buy into along with us. You know, as we work toward improvement of this system and work to meet the demands and expectations of families and community in this system, we're also living and working at a time when, quite honestly, we have leadership at our state level and in our Missouri legislature that aren't being very supportive toward public education. So the pressure is on us even more than ever before to be effective and to be smart and to be efficient with our resources, to deliver what community is asking of us all the time, but to maintain the financial sustainability and to be good stewards of what we have in front of us. So I'm really pleased to be able to support this particular work. I think that we understand as a body that we don't have all the answers and that there are fresh ideas and new insights out there that we can gain from. We don't start out believing that all good ideas come from within us. But I hope that this work will help us to draw partnerships where there's a readiness to dig in and partner together for the best of all children.
Board Member Evans.
This effort that was presented to you tonight was not just something that the board did, as has already been mentioned. This was a concerted effort on the part of the community, the board, and what have you. But one person that I noticed doing the making of this historical narrative was Ms. Shannon. Raise your hand, Shannon. So, as we matriculated through this document, Shannon had the responsibility of making the changes. And I have to say, Shannon, not once did I see you get flustered or frustrated because there were a lot of changes being made. And I also want to say that I'm thinking about boards in the past. Coming to a board meeting historically was very exciting and very interesting. And I'm sure that for those of you who have watched the board can attest to that. They were something that you'd want to come and see the action. But as time moved forward, board meetings became different. They're not like they used to be. I mean, and that's good. The boards in the past was almost like going to the movies. I mean, you wanted to go because you knew that there would be something would happen there. But when you put together a team like like our board chair, Ms. Robinson, and you have a great superintendent, Dr. Bedell, who makes sure that we stay on task and stay in our lane. Because to be perfectly honest, as a teacher myself, it is really difficult for me not to show up at a school and just go in and just, start teaching. But I can't do that. And I'm glad I can't do it because it would be a conflict of interest for the board. So I appreciate, Dr. Bedell, you enforcing that policy. Just because you can teach, you used to be able to teach, it doesn't mean that you can still do it, because I so applaud the young people who are in our buildings that are doing a great job. And the training that they receive is second to none. So Ms. Robinson, Dr. Bedell, and the rest of the board, I applaud you for a job well done.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Just a few brief comments. I am definitely in support of this proposal, and for me, it is an issue of stewardship and an opportunity for us to display to our community at large that we are willing to step up and be those stewards, and also leadership, and being able to look at this from a lens of it being a challenge that Dr. Bedell really put before us, and provided a lot of healthy friction that created an opportunity for us to collaborate in a meaningful way. So I will never look at homework differently. When Jennifer calls and talks about homework, and Dr. Bedell, you might want to put her on the homework team in case there's something you want us to. She will make sure that it gets done. But, you know, from a unique perspective for me, having one foot in the charter world and having one foot in the KCPS world as a parent, I definitely see the value all the time that we can say we're in this together, and this is about the betterment of our overall system and how do we work together and collaboratively. So I'm very proud of the work that we've done in having that, as Dr. Bedell alluded to, not necessarily a welcome sign, but saying that we're here and we're willing to collaborate. And that's a different narrative as well that we're able to put forth as a board. So very proud of that. Any other comments? Okay. It is been moved and seconded to approve the position statement on the board principles for education collaboration. There's no more debate, so the secretary will call the roll.
Ms. Manser?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Mr. Oates?
Yes.
Mr. Fierro?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mrs. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes. There is a majority in favor and the proposal is approved. It will now be in order to receive a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to approve the items on the consent agenda. This will be a roll call vote. Those in favor will respond yes. Those opposed will respond no. The secretary will call the roll.
Ms. Manser?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis? Sorry. Mr. Oates?
Yes.
Mr. Fierro?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mrs. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes, there's a majority in favor and the items on the consent agenda are approved. I do want to say really quickly before we adjourn that we again want to welcome Ms. June Kochmeyer as our new board secretary. Please take a moment to welcome her as we did at the last meeting, but wanted to provide a reminder for those of you who may not have been there. And our previous secretary, Ms. Fetty, is now in Dr. Bedell's office, and so you will still be able to interact with her in that way. So, yes.
And I also have an announcement, and we will share this with our faculty and staff on my update on Monday. But tonight, we have appointed Mike Reynolds as our Chief Research and Accountability Officer. As many of you know, he served in that position as interim from the beginning of the school year to now, but he's done some phenomenal work and brings a tremendous amount of contextual knowledge that we need to really have a balance within my cabinet. So Mike, we do want to welcome you into your position as a full-time permanent Chief Research and Accountability Officer.
Congratulations to you both. And if there's nothing else to come before the body, the meeting is adjourned. Good evening.